Thank you so much for that very kind introduction. 14 years ago, I spoke at this event, and back then, my theme was that great universities benefit from having a law school, and that great law schools benefit from the affiliation with a university. Today, I'd like to return to the theme of the important connections between universities on the one hand and legal education and the legal profession on the other. But my focus will be a little different. Today, I want to talk about our shared values and shared roles in the preservation of democracy and the rule of law. Democracies around the world are facing serious challenges from the rise of authoritarianism. Threats to freedom and democracy are not new, and would-be autocrats have long understood that universities, an independent legal profession, and the rule of law are pillars of democratic societies and obstacles in the path to dictatorship or tyranny. Consider, for example, the famous line from Shakespeare's Henry VI. The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers. What people sometimes forget is that the line is spoken by Dick the Butcher as part of a mob seeking to overthrow the government. Dick is egged on by Jack Cade, a rabble-rouser who purports to be interested in the travails of commoners and makes extravagant and unrealizable promises of cheap bread and strong beer, all the while plotting to take over as king, exercising tyrannical powers for his own personal gain. That's a kind of modern ring, doesn't it? Interestingly, a few lines later, Cade and his mob go one step further. They execute a clerk for the crime of being able to read and write. They have him hanged with his pen and inkwell around his neck, lest anyone be unsure of his crime. Dick the Butcher understood what both the defenders of democracy and would-be autocrats know all too well. The rule of law and education are primary obstacles to tyranny. It's easy to imagine that if the play were written today, the line might be only slightly different. First thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers. Second thing, let's get rid of all the university professors, or at least all the university presidents. Sorry, Kevin. Why are universities and the legal profession so important to democracy and such a threat to autocrats? Turning first to universities, at their core, universities are built on the principle of academic freedom and are places that encourage scholars to conduct research, expand human knowledge, and express ideas without fear of censorship, repression, or professional retribution. This mission fundamentally clashes with autocratic control, which relies on limiting information, stifling dissent, and restricting the ability of citizens to question official dogma or official versions of the facts. The point is not that universities produce research that is invariably true. It is that at our best, we encourage faculty and students to regularly ask, what don't we know about this issue? Or what if we think we know is wrong? Universities, and particularly those focused on the liberal arts, emphasize critical thinking, effective communication, ethical reasoning, and an understanding of diverse perspectives. Liberal arts in Latin is artis liberalis, or skills befitting a free person. We like to tell parents and those funding a liberal arts education that these skills have market value and will benefit graduates in their careers, and they do. But they are also fundamental to a free and democratic society built on the rule of law. And I think we should view that as not merely a happy coincidence, but a part of our reason for being. The idea that education is essential to democracy has been a theme since this nation's founding. We see it reflected in the works of our founding leaders, including Mr. Jefferson, who started that school down the road. We see it in the literally hundreds of colleges that opened in the early 19th century, and in hallmark federal legislation like the Morrill Act and the GI Bill. And we see it reflected in the writing of scholars such as John Dewey, who wrote, "Democracy has to be born anew every generation, and education is its midwife." Then there's the legal profession, which, like universities, is a traditional target of autocrats. Lawyers literally swear an oath, not to a particular leader, but to support the Constitution and the rule of law. Law is our king, is the way Thomas Paine put it, so it's no surprise that one who aspires to be king would find the rule of law and the lawyers and judges who enforce the rule of law to be a threat to their power. What are lawyers really? Jerry Seinfeld once asked the question and answered it this way. To me, the lawyer is basically the person who knows the rules of the country. We're all throwing the dice, playing the game, moving our pieces around the board, and if there's a problem, the lawyer is the only person who's read the inside of the top of the box. For those would-be autocrats trying to circumvent the rules of the game, one of the biggest obstacles is those people who keep insisting that the rules must be followed. A well-structured society built on the rule of law needs people who've read the inside of the box top and who are committed to supporting the core principles of the rule of law, that everyone, including those in positions of power, is subject to and accountable under the law, that legal processes are accessible, transparent, and impartial, and that the law is applied fairly and equally. Notwithstanding the importance of democracy of both universities and the legal profession, neither of these institutions is particularly popular at the moment, and we have to be honest with ourselves about this reality. There are no doubt many reasons for the low esteem in which we are held, but I would like to highlight one in particular. I think that both universities and law are increasingly perceived as entirely inaccessible to most people. The reality is that the majority of Americans who experience a civil legal matter don't receive the assistance of an attorney. Here in Virginia, for example, of cases pending in General District Court, both parties were represented by a lawyer in 1% of the cases. Likewise, although 70% of adults without a college degree say that a bachelor's degree is extremely or very valuable, even more believe that a college education is financially out of reach. Elite universities enroll more students from the top 1% of incomes than from the bottom 60%. I worry that the legal profession and universities are increasingly viewed as private luxury goods, something akin to a designer handbag that can be flaunted about and confers private prestige, but is largely inaccessible to most people. To the extent this perception persists, the destruction of universities and the legal profession by would-be autocrats has little political salience and is likely to meet with little popular resistance. But their destruction, our destruction, has consequences for democracy. We must recognize the risks and act with courage and intentionality. So what should we be doing? Well, first let me observe that this university is already taking steps that contribute to democracy, and as to which we should be justly proud. We make a Richmond education broadly accessible by meeting full need of all traditional undergraduate students. Our legal clinics and pro bono programs provide thousands of hours of free legal services to those who cannot afford them. And we have a number of programs that enhance the civic knowledge and skills of not only our students, but also of members of the community. All of these enhance the foundations of our democracy. But I think we should ask whether we can do more. Ronald Daniels, president of Johns Hopkins, has a book entitled "What Universities Owe Democracy?" He offers his own answers to that question, and our answers might be different. But I would suggest that as a well-resourced liberal arts university with a law school, we should seek to answer that question for ourselves, and then deliberately and self-consciously center the answers as part of our core mission. Let me close with Benjamin Franklin's famous quote in response to the question, "Well, doctor, what have we got, a republic or a monarchy?" Franklin replied, "A republic if you can keep it." I'd respectfully suggest that we should make it part of our mission to try to keep it. Thank you for the opportunity to offer these reflections, and thank you, President Halleck and Provost Saab, for the privilege of being a member of this wonderful community. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.